with your host, Jaden Miller.
Good day, and thank you for joining me on Think About It with Jaden Miller. I'm, of course, your host, Jaden Miller. Please check out my website at www.jadenmiller.com. That's JAYDENMILLER.com. Please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Google, Castbox, iHeartRadio, Audrey, Podvine, Amazon, and so many more podcasts. I'm coming from the beautiful Phoenix metropolitan area, of course, and it's sunny here like it usually is. We did get some rain last week, which was a shocker, but we're back into sunshine again. This is now fall, but it's really funny because is there really a fall in Phoenix, Arizona? Yes, there is. The temperatures usually drop down into the 90s, into the 80s from the 100s. But I still think we're at 100 degrees today on September 25th. Lots of stuff going on in the news. The United States warns of consequences if Russia uses nuclear weapons. If Russia crosses the line, there will be catastrophic consequences. And that is being said by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He says if Russia crosses this line, meaning nuclear weapons, there will be catastrophic consequences for Russia. The United States will respond decisively. Now, in private channels, we have spelled out in greater detail exactly what that would mean. So I guess what Jake Sullivan is saying is that they've had some conversations with, the good old boys in Russia, and they've told them, look, y'all can keep on with this mess if you want to, okay? But if you step over this line, all right, the United States will respond accordingly, all right? I would put that in street talk for you, but I think you get the message. He's just lining out that there will be consequences if Russia uses a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. And so what's going on is that Ukraine is really fighting back. Vladimir Putin's announcement of increased military conscription to bolster Moscow's invasion of Ukraine shows that the Russian president has been outsmarted. And this also is backed up by the new United Kingdom Prime Minister Liz Truss. She says that Russia made a big mistake, a strategic mistake in invading the Ukraine. And then she also went on to say that she thinks that Putin has been outsmarted by the Ukrainians, and I think that's right. It's really that old story of David and Goliath, Goliath thought he could invade little bitty Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin thought he would be in and out of there in a couple of weeks. And now this has turned into many months. And the Ukrainians keep fighting back. And so I say, go Ukrainians, keep fighting this idiot back. And hopefully he'll back off. It really does show that he is weak, and that now they want to, make Russian citizens join in this effort to defeat the Ukrainians. And at many border cities and at many border passes, there are lots of Russians that are trying to leave Russia because they don't want to fight in this stupid, idiotic war. And who could blame them? Really ridiculous. Floridians brace for the arrival of Tropical Storm Ian, which is forecast to rapidly intensify. There are hundreds of thousands without power in some areas as it relates to this tropical storm. So people in Florida, be careful. It is coming your way. And the rest of us, we certainly pray with you guys and hope that everything will be okay. Something else that happened this week, which I find really, really challenging and really, really sad. And that is this whole situation with the Boston Celtics head coach Ime Udoka. This was his second year, or would have been his second year as head coach with the Boston Celtics, and it looked like Boston had a great year before them, but Ime Udoka was suspended for the entire 2022-2023 NBA season for violations of the team's code of conduct. So assistant coach Joe Mazzulla will serve as the team's interim head coach in Udoka's absence. And then a decision about Udoka's long-term future with the team beyond this season will be made at a later date. It's a really sad situation. Udoka really strived to get ahead in the NBA. He worked diligently and hard, and for this situation to pop up, and actually, let's not even say pop up because it didn't pop up, Let me give you a little background. Ime Udoka is an American Nigerian. He has been engaged to actress Nia Long since 2015. If you don't know who Nia Long is, all you got to do is just Google her. She's been in a myriad of movies throughout the years and is beloved in the Black community. They share a 10-year-old child together as well. And so she was in the process of moving to the East Coast, of course, to be with her fiance. But according to Kevin Frazier of Entertainment Tonight, Udoka was suspended for the season because of an affair with a married Boston Celtics staffer. And it seems as though this woman's husband overheard a private conversation between his wife and Udoka on a home doorbell camera. That's why you got to be real careful of technology, okay? Kevin Frazier said on Twitter that multiple sources confirmed that the female staffer's affair with Celtics coach Ime Udoka was uncovered by her husband when he overheard a private conversation on a home doorbell camera. Entertainment Tonight reports that actress Nia Long, Udoka's longtime fiancée and the mother of his child, as I already mentioned, did not learn about the affair until ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski shed light on the matter last week. The Celtics staffer in question was reportedly tasked with aiding Nia Long and her child's move to Boston to be with Udoka, which she purportedly continued to do even after Boston confronted Udoka about the affair in July. Kevin Frazier goes on Twitter to say, according to well-placed sources, even after the affair was discovered by the Celtics, the female staffer continued to work with Nia Long on her move to Boston. Nia did not learn about the affair until the disciplinary action by the franchise was made public. Dude. So I just want to briefly mention that I certainly feel for this family. Okay, I think that's first and foremost. Whatever we think about Ime Udoka, he's talented. I'm sure he's a great father. Obviously, he had the support of Celtics owner Wyc Grousbeck and general manager Brad Stevens. They all, supported him for sure in his role as the Boston Celtics coach. But when this affair came to light, well, they hired an outside agency to come in and take a look at the situation, which obviously was the right thing to do, okay? Because you don't want a situation like this, okay, to be made public and it shows that the Boston Celtics was trying to hide something. So, step aside, allow an outside agency to come in and to report back independently, which is what they did, okay? And then the Celtics owner and the general manager could take the right action at that time. Okay. So in essence, if Ime Udoka was found to not have engaged in any activities that violated team policies, that would have been great. But in this situation, he did. Okay. And it was found out by this woman's that he was having an affair with, this Celtic staffer's husband. Now, of course, this man is upset. Why would he not be? Okay. His wife is having an affair with the Boston Celtics coach. Okay. Men are men. Men get jealous. Men don't like that. Just like women don't like it. Men don't like it. One man does not like to be usurped or made stupid, but look stupid by another man. Okay. That's first and foremost. All right. Especially one that may have a higher status. I don't know what this woman's husband did, but let's just say, Ime Udoka had a higher status. He certainly had a higher public, he was out there in the public more so than this woman's husband. Maybe I wanted to say public persona. And so jealousy can always creep in. So I'm sure that he reported, well, first and foremost, I'm sure he had a conversation with his wife and it probably did not go very well. Okay. And so he did what a lot of men would have done, and that is he notified the Boston Celtics to say, hey, you all need to check into the situation, because if you don't, I'm going to the public and make this known. I'm going to the media to make this known. And so the Boston Celtics did the right thing. The other part of that is this same woman that he's having the affair with is helping Nia Long to move to Boston. See, when people have affairs, all right, oftentimes they're one night, or maybe even less than a night, okay, maybe an hour, maybe less. It might be over with. It might be a consensual thing where, hey, this is a one-time thing, or, we meet, once every couple of weeks or what have you. Okay. I'm not trying to disrupt your marriage. You're not trying to disrupt your marriage. However that stuff works. Okay. But in this situation, when you are deceiving your fiance with the woman you're having the affair with, doesn't that make it worse? So you're having an affair, and to make things look like nothing's happening. Okay, this is just the utmost in deception. Okay, so I'm gonna have the female staffer, okay, to work with my fiance to get her to come to Boston, making travel arrangements, talking to her, making sure everything is all set up. Okay, so that way my fiance does not have any idea that this woman, okay, who's helping me with the move, who's making this transition so much easier, is actually the same person having an affair with my fiance. Okay, so that makes it so much worse. My original point was, those one night stands, one and done, but when you carry this on like this for however long it's been going on, okay, the deception and the deceitfulness, okay, to the person that you're doing this to, okay, makes it so much harder for them to forgive, I would think. Okay, but anyway, that's just my opinion. Just thought I would share that. I think it's really horrific. I think it's really sad. And I think Ime Udoka really is going to have to consider, what his future is going to be, not only in the NBA, because he's suspended for a year, but I'm just saying, sources are saying that he's done with the Boston Celtics. Sources are also saying that he's done in the NBA. Dude, was it worth it? Is the question. Was it worth it? Was it truly worth it? So now that's just with the Boston Celtics. Now, Nia Long, a great actress, the mother of your son. Now you have to deal with, and then it's all public and out there. So you've not only embarrassed yourself and train wrecked your career, but then you also have caused her, in this ugliness to be out there in the public light. Just not a good thing, man. Just not a good thing. I just really wish you would have thought really seriously and hard before you engaged in this kind of behavior. And, I'm not saying this to be judgmental. I'm just stating it as a fact, that it's just bad. It just is. It's just bad. It happened. I'm sorry it happened. I wish that would have never happened, because your family is really destroyed. And that really sucks. What I really want to talk to you guys today about was this whole notion of defund the police, though. Defund the police. What the heck is defund the police? Okay. And who thinks about stuff like this? Well, defund the police is really something that started to come up in the aftermath of the police murder of George Floyd back in 2020. Protests erupted in Minneapolis for one, but across many United States cities, with activists and community members demanding that Black Lives Matter, and with many calling to defund the police. Gosh, it's really difficult. All right. This whole thing, defund the police. So as a teacher of government, of course, I know a little something about how policing was created. Specifically that it started in London by Sir Robert Peel, but how it then eventually came into the United States, and how for a while, of course, there's this notion, some truthful, that police departments are based on the old slave patrols where slaves would run away to the north but would be caught, and then sent back to their slave masters back in the South. And there's probably some truth to that. But as a former law enforcement officer, at several different levels, I can say that the defund the police, this whole notion, is really not going over very well. And I'll try to explain my thoughts in just a minute. But I think first it's important to understand why people want to defund the police. And again, it's mainly activists, it's mainly liberals, and I don't have anything against liberals, but I'm just stating facts. It is liberals that want to defund the police. And these are some of the reasons why. They say that policing in the United States was established to maintain white supremacy. Okay, I've already mentioned this, that U.S. slave patrols and night watches were the beginning of a racially directed system of law enforcement designed to secure capital for white settlers. Okay, perhaps. I don't think that was the main reason. I think the police were established in the United States in order to keep crime at bay. But I think part of it also has to do with the slave patrol things. Here's another reason. Policing doesn't keep us safe. Now, again, these are the reasons that liberals are stating why we need to defund the police. Policing doesn't keep us safe. Okay, but do you have an alternative? All right. For example, they state these statistics: despite the billions of dollars spent every year on policing, more than 15,000 people were killed by gun violence in 2019 alone. Disproportionately young people of color. Okay. But are the police responsible for the killing of these people is my question. Or is it the criminals in the community? I'll get back to that in a moment. The third reason they say is body cameras, trainings, and other so-called reform measures will not end cycles of police violence. Okay. So again, my issue with this is it police violence? And we do know that it is some. And we do need to end police violence. But the overall reaching thing is, who is creating the majority of the violence in these crime-ridden neighborhoods? Okay, is it the police? All right, my next one, or the next one from the liberals. Policing, number 4, policing diverts billions of dollars from schools, healthcare, and other vital programs that need more funding to strengthen our communities and support shared well-being. U.S. cities collectively spend $100 billion a year on policing, while needed investments in education, healthcare, housing, and other critical programs go unfilled, particularly in poor communities and communities of color. New York City, for instance, spends more on policing than it does on the Departments of Health, Homeless Services, Housing Preservation and Development, and Youth and Community Development combined. The 5th point is black organizers are calling for black organizers are calling for divestment from policing and investment in human needs across the country. Okay. Their point here is that as part of its platform, the Movement for Black Lives calls for the reallocation of federal, state, and local government funds from policing and incarceration to long-term strategies for education, restorative justice services, and employment programs. And then their 6th point. Our tax dollars should be invested in more humane and just alternatives to policing. For example, they say that includes funding healthcare workers to respond to mental health emergencies instead of the police, which I would agree with. It also means shifting resources to transformative justice approaches that support survivors and work directly with the person who has caused harm through community-based systems of accountability. Under these models, community members work together to keep each other safe. All right. So these are the 6 reasons why liberals, activists want to defund the police. So the thing about defunding police is this is what these liberals want, and this is what some activists want. And some of these activists are black activists. Some of them are Latino activists or whatever. Their race doesn't matter. It's just they're activists. All right. So I guess I can see these issues from a number of different vantage points. As a now educator, I can see it from that vantage point. As a former member of law enforcement, I can see it from that vantage point. But then as a person of color, as a black man, I can certainly see it from that point of view as well. So first, let me say that we definitely need to end police violence, okay, in black and Latino communities mainly. All right. But it also needs to stop in white communities too, because this is the thing. There's a lot of police violence in white communities as well. Okay. It's not just happening in communities of color. We know about it. Proportionately, it happens more in communities of color, but it happens across the nation. All right. So we need to stop police violence specifically. Now, that's my law enforcement part. My black part of me says, yeah, what we need to do is we need to have anti-bias training as a crucial component of policing. See, a lot of what's happening is we have people that enter into the law enforcement field that have had no contact with people of color. Black people, Latinos, Asians, okay, poor whites have had no contact. All right. So they come into law enforcement with these biases, okay, these stereotypes based upon music that they've heard or something that they've watched on TV, or because they come from families that continue to perpetuate these racial stereotypes from way back in time, which I'm going to editorialize now is ridiculous and stupid. Okay. All right. So we need to have some anti-bias training. Okay. The reason why I say this as well is now, as I work in education, quite often what I will see is you have African-American students, you have Latino students, and disproportionately they will be disciplined more than white students. I've seen this happen many, many times. All right. And so often you'll see a black student asking questions of, let's say, a teacher or an administrator, but that administrator sees the teacher sees, or that teacher sees the student, see that as defiance, because they're asking questions. They're asking why. Okay, why am I being? And then they may get a little, their voice may get a little bit excited. They may get a little bit more passionate. That's because they simply want to know, why is it that I am being singled out? Or what did I do? And that begs the question, well, okay, if they're asking you what you did, shouldn't you tell them what they did? It's just like on a traffic stop and the police stop you, okay? And you roll down your window and say, "Good afternoon, officer. Can you explain to me why you stopped me?" Well, explain to them. Tell them that you ran a red light or you were driving too fast. But you don't want to get into this tug of war, well, give me your driver's license and being rude to people, because that just goes nowhere, okay? So quite often, because we're dissimilar in some ways, all right, then, for example, a white police officer may see that African American person or that Latino person as being defiant to them or disrespectful to them, okay? And it is not that at all. And so that's why, it's so good to have this anti-bias training, so that police officers can see, okay, that, hey, in certain communities, they act a certain way. So as an African-American police officer in the city of Chicago, when I went on crime scenes, people are upset, okay? When you go to someone's house, they may be yelling, they may be screaming, they may be upset, okay? Well, that's because they're human beings and they're emotional at that time, okay? Now, true, when you come on the scene, you need to try to calm things down, okay? But if a mother is witnessing or has just witnessed her child get shot and killed, God, can't we have a little bit of empathy? So we want that mom to be quiet and shut up, so that you can investigate. Okay? So some people are emotional and they let out those emotions. That is a human response. And sometimes that is a cultural response. But more than anything, that's a mother that is saddened over the death of her child. And then if we're dealing with younger people, okay, sometimes they may have a tendency to talk back. Don't 13 and 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds do that at home? So I would ask, for example, a white parent, okay, of white children, okay, sometimes do your children talk back to you? Sometimes do they say things that they shouldn't say? Okay. So, and then is your response to lock them up? Is your response, oh, well, they all are going to be in prison in the next few years? No. I think your response is one of, you know what? They're going through these hormonal changes, okay? Maybe they're upset, okay? And so maybe if I diffuse the situation some, or maybe if I explain to them the reason for the consequences, okay? Or maybe if I calmly say, you need to change your tone of voice. I'm your mom or I'm your father. You need to show me a little bit more respect, okay? Then perhaps that attitude will change, okay? And so I think it's the same thing, when we're talking about what happens in African American communities, okay? We have to face the fact, okay, that in this country, Black people and Latino people have not been treated fairly by the police. And if you are going to be a police officer, you need to come into that community with that history in mind, knowing that, yes, I'm not the one that created it, but there were people, idiots before me, that came into this profession with their racial biases, and now I am paying the cost of their silliness, okay? And so by doing so, I have to show a different face. Okay, I have to be different in my routine interactions with Black Americans. I've got to be different in my interactions with Latino families. I've got to be different because I may have that implicit bias within me, okay, that now might be showing explicitly. All right. So that's why it's important that we have anti-bias training. We don't need to defund the police. Okay. We just need to train the police. Okay. See, this is something else. I was in community policing in Chicago, and I can tell you that community policing works when black people and white police officers, black police officers, Asian police officers, Latino police officers, it doesn't matter, okay? And it doesn't really matter the type of community, okay? But when they sit down together and come up with strategies to impact the crime in their communities, then you know what? Crime goes down. It is a proven fact. I've seen it happen many, many times. And when I was in Chicago, I worked in some of the most dangerous communities, and I saw police officers working together with citizens, and I saw crime going down. Okay? Communities of color have confidence in community policing. We just need to do more of it. And we have to do it together. The people cannot just sit in their homes like it's a prison, okay? And the police can't roll around their neighborhood with their windows up and the air conditioning on. People have got to start trusting. They have to get out of their police cars. They've got to start going to court. They've got to start coming out on street corners. They've got to start reporting things to the police. That's community policing. It's the way it was back in the old days, okay? When a police officer walked the beat, he knew everybody in that community, all right? That's what we have to get back to. See, another point in terms of why we don't need to defund the police is people of color want to see more officers on the streets who represent their community. Yeah. So let me go back to my point about schools, okay? And this is why it's important that schools have black teachers and Latino teachers and Asian teachers and white teachers and LGBTQ teachers, okay? Because that's what makes up a school today, all right? And a white teacher may see a situation with a black child so much different than I do. Okay, so they may see somebody getting passionate and asking questions as being defiant. Oh, there's that black guy. You know, he's getting angry. You know, he's always in trouble. No, it's a black student that is passionate and just wants to know what did they do. Black people, Latino people are traditionally in this nation distrustful of people in authority. But shouldn't they be? Because authority has not always been kind to these people in these communities. So I think it's so ridiculous that people get upset. Well, why are they acting that way? Well, why don't they trust us? Well, all you got to do is take a little walk through a history book and maybe you'll find the answer. Okay? But people of color want to see more officers. They want to see blacks as police officers. They want to see Latinos because quite often those people that come from those same communities, they know what's happening. They view things the same way. They can say, hey, they can put their arm around somebody and say, hey, today I'm going to give you a break. Okay? But don't let me see you do this again. As opposed to we're going to lock everybody up. Because you can't lock everybody up. You don't want to consistently give all of these people criminal records. Why? When kids make a mistake. We do this in schools, okay? We can't have a permanent record on some 13-year-old that carries with them throughout their adult life because of a mistake they made, okay? See, they don't do that in white schools. Why are we going to do that in black communities and Latino communities or communities of color? Okay, we're going to label somebody for the rest of their life for a mistake they made at 13 or 14. And I'm not talking about those major criminal acts. I'm certainly not talking about homicide and sexual assault or anything like that. But I'm talking about those things that happen every day in our communities. Okay, where if there was just representation from the community, that would make a world of difference. All right. We don't need to defund the police. Communities of color want police to do their jobs effectively. All right? See, the role of law enforcement officers is among the bedrocks of civil society. That's what I say, okay? We need the police because guess what? If I need the police to come to my house, and I call 911, I want them to come. I mean, what am I going to do? So is the fire department going to come and help me solve the crime problem? No. Okay. Oh, so should I call the bus service? Okay. The bus driver is going to come. Or maybe I should call APS, the electric service. They're going to send somebody out to enforce the law and to maintain public order and to investigate crime? Absolutely not. So if we defund the police, then who's going to do this stuff? Huh? And I really wonder if the liberals think about this, and I mean, so what kind of society do they want, or do they want, these milquetoast police officers to walk around, and shaking everybody's hand and letting the criminals go? See, that's not what communities of color want. We want tough police officers, but we want kind and courteous ones to the people in the community as well. And so you can be both. Okay, because as a police officer, you know who the criminal element is. And then you also know who the little old lady down the street is. And there's a difference. Okay, see, we need to treat the little old lady down the street with respect because she's also paying your tax dollars. Okay, but those criminals that are hanging out on the street corner, okay, then we need to do something about them. And there's a type of language and a type of persona we need to use with them, because if not, then what happens? Okay, they take over and have taken over these communities. Take a look at Minneapolis, for example. People of color want law enforcement to do a better job of solving crimes and getting violent criminals off the streets. That's what people of color want. Okay, they don't want to defund the police. They want the police to use all of the technology that they can muster. Okay, to get these people off the streets, because this is causing harm in their communities. I was reading the other day, a grandfather in Minneapolis drives around with a picture of his granddaughter in his car, his 6-year-old granddaughter that was killed in crossfire in Minneapolis, one of those cities that they want to defund the police in. Okay, and so crime has skyrocketed in Minneapolis, but yet police, the members of the police department have gone down drastically. Who wants to be the police in Minneapolis? Not many people. Why? Because you want to defund them, and because then you also don't treat them with the respect that they deserve. Not all police officers enact violence in communities. Not all police officers are racist. Not all police officers just want to drive around in their nice squad cars while crime just continues to go up in those communities. They don't. They took the job for a reason. Okay, most of them. Okay, those that have not or do not, there's always a way to weed them out. Just like in any other profession. If they are bad teachers, they'll get weeded out. If they're bad doctors, they'll get weeded out. Okay? If they're bad nurses, whatever, they'll get weeded out at some point. Crimes that remain unsolved equates to criminals that remain on the street and families that remain without closure. Gosh. In communities of color where confidence in police has already deteriorated, a decrease in the number of crimes solved just exacerbates the discontent felt by citizens. People have this misconception that in communities of color that people like these criminals. These criminals are feeding on them. They are not supportive of the criminals. They are caught between a rock and a hard place, okay? You've got police on one side. You don't know if I can trust them, some of them, okay? But then you've got these criminals on the other side. So if I tell the police, are they going to actually handle the crime? Or are they going to put my name out there? People have to deal with these criminals every day. And sometimes people would rather deal with the criminals than deal with the police. And that's sad. That's why we've got to flip things around. Communities of color do not want to defund the police, but they do want to keep guns out of the wrong hands. Okay? Out of the wrong hands. See, the right hand is a person who is a law-abiding citizen, okay? Regardless of if they live in a state that has permitless carry or that you have to have some restrictions, whatever. But they want people to have the weapons that are law-abiding citizens, not these criminals that use these weapons against them. So they want the guns out of the wrong hands. And police, not only at the local level, but at the federal and state levels, can come together to fight this. And they really need to get rid of these loopholes that allow these criminals to carry weapons and to use them in the commission of crime. People of color want hate crimes to be taken seriously. Sometimes they're not. All right? And so this whole notion of defunding the police is really, really ridiculous, because there's this notion that black people or Latino people want to defund the police. No, because black people and Latino people aren't saying that. Okay, and Asian people either, and white people aren't saying that either. And I'm talking about those that live within some of these communities or in poor communities. They are not saying we need to defund the police. They are saying we need to fund the police, but we need to get rid of the criminals. Okay, I want the police to have the money they need in order to get rid of these people that are killing my loved ones or taking my property or damaging my property or causing the overall quality of life that I have to go substantially down. So in Minneapolis, where they want to defund the police, homicides are up. Crime is up. But yet, where is the liberal think tank for that? Okay? Where are these activists now? Okay? Where are you? Crime is up. You still want to defund the police? You still think that defunding the police and taking the police budget and transferring them into these other areas will help the crime rate? It will help people, but criminals look forward to this kind of discussion. They watch this kind of discussion because they know that if they can get people turned against the police, and especially the people that live in those communities, that they have no alternatives. They have none, because the milkman is not coming to enforce the law for you. I'm sorry. But the police will. So in essence, what we want is we want training for the police. We want police not to be racist. We don't want police to be violent in our communities, especially against law-abiding citizens. Okay? We want police to be more responsible. That's what we want. We want police to reduce their use of force, okay, in our communities. That's what we want. And I think that's what citizens deserve, because this is the thing that people have forgotten. At so many levels, okay? Even with politicians. Politicians act like rock stars, okay? They act like they just they're above the law. No, the people elected you. We forget this. The same with the police. The police serve at the will of the people. We have forgotten that in this country. And so if we, regardless of the community, but also especially communities of color, need to remind the police of that you work for us, the people. Okay? And so what we want to see is transformation in the departments. We want better use of technology. We want a bias training. We need all of this. Okay? We need to reduce anti-bias training. We need to reduce excessive force in these communities. We need to reduce this implicit bias in our communities. That's what really needs to happen. We don't need to take money away from the police to have these things to happen. We really, truly don't. All right. This is Jaden Miller. Thank you guys for listening to my podcast, this episode of my podcast. Don't forget you can check me out at www.jadenmiller.com. Please like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. All right. I look forward to the next episode. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. A fabulous week.
Thank you for listening to Think About It with Jaden Miller. Don't forget to like and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and like and follow on your favorite podcast platform.